Hey guys, it's Mason. I decided this year, instead of doing kind of a top end year list for music, I'd make a video. Uh, it's gonna be one of my first times trying to do this, so bear with me. There's quite a few things to get through. Before I get to the actual top 10 list, I'd like to talk about just some of the tracks I thought were really good this year. Remo Drive, Crash Test Rating. This is just kind of a fun song. It falls somewhere in between early Fall Out Boy and like Motion City soundtrack. I love the hook. It's something about like comparing you as a choice to mid-sized sedan. I think is hilarious. Kendrick Lamar, Humble. Even though this album for me wasn't up there in my favorites from Kendrick Lamar, the hook on this track in particular is just mesmerizing. Like I find myself just like going through my everyday, just sit down, be humble, syrup sandwiches aside. Forest Swords, High Flood, great electronic track off of his new album Compassion. I just really love the organic textures he uses throughout the course of this album. Lucid off the new Kelly Lee Owens self-entitled album. Great track. It kind of has a little bit of that like Arca flavor to the production. The way it picks up in the second half is fantastic. There's a lot of great tracks off this album. I recommend checking it out. Shark Smile by Big Thief. Storytelling in this track is fantastic. I really wish that music had more of this element into it. It kind of has a little bit of that Bruce Springsteen flavor to it. Her vocals are unique enough to kind of stand out from the group. Speaking of Saddle Creek, Land of Talk this time. Great track by a great artist. It's been a while since we've heard some songs from them, so I'm glad they came back with a vengeance. It's just really good material. Julian Baker, Turn Out the Lights. Just what a powerhouse of emotion. This song is just a great depiction of what depression is for most people. Lyrics are fantastic. Honestly, this album probably would have made my top 10 if there was just a little bit more diversity in the song structures. 100 Waters, Wave to Anger. This was probably my most anticipated album of the year. All of the singles leading up to the album's release were fantastic. I loved all of them. A little sad it didn't make my top 10 list. Kind of fell a little bit flat for me. Solid record nonetheless. Wave to Anchor is a great track with these sweeping arpeggios and just great songwriting in general. Gorillaz, Saturn's Bars. I love the toy sample at the beginning of this thing. I think Pop Can's verses are incredible. It's very lively, very fun. A lot of what I think of when I think of Gorillaz. It's kind of a shame that Humans wasn't quite as cohesive as, say, Plastic Beach or Demon Days. But, a great listen nonetheless. The XX, Replica. I didn't foresee myself liking this album as much as I did. This is one of the standout tracks, I think, from the track list here. Love the bass line. It's insane. The slow space, slow rhythm. It's basically the XX doing what they do best. Clarence Clarity, Naysayer, Godslayer. I'm a huge fan of Clarence Clarity. I think No Now, his release in 2015, was my favorite release of that year. I'd like to see him put together a full-length project, but from now on, these teaser tracks are all I'm going to get, and I just have to be happy with that. It has a really dirty pop feel, something like Leda in Sync almost, but not nearly as accessible. There's a lot of glitch hop elements, a lot of things going on, very maximalist. Rina Sawayama, Cyber Stockholm Syndrome. Just a fantastic pop track, very 90s pastiche, kind of coincidentally also produced by Clarence Clarity. The chorus almost reads a little bit like late Mariah Carey, super contagious, exactly what I want to hear from my pop music. Kelela, Waiting. It was really hard to pick a track off this album that I considered my favorite. There's a bunch of really great tracks. I picked this one just because it has an immediate pop sense to it. Mogwai Party in the Dark, probably the most poppy track Mogwai has ever come out with, and it's not a bad thing. It's not a turnoff for someone like me who really loves kind of the earlier works in their discography. Overall, the album kind of had a little bit of that hardcore will never die feel to it, which happened to be one of my favorite albums by Mogwai. So really enjoyed this album. Super enjoyed this track. Shoo Shoo, Wondering. This is probably the most accessible Shoo Shoo's ever been. Jamie still has his like Draculan vibrato, so it's not like super accessible, but just enough for people who haven't been introduced to Shoo Shoo before to really sink their teeth in. All right, now it's time to get into what I thought were the best albums of 2017. Number 10, Bjork's Utopia. The production by Arca is probably the most light-footed Arca has ever felt on an album. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. It really gives Bjork the space to do what she needs to do here in this album. The whole album almost sounds like it was recorded in a menagerie. There's animal noises that sound both domestic and alien. Overall, a solid record. Where it falls in Bjork's discography for me, probably somewhere between Biophilia and Medulla, probably the lower end, but being as big of a Bjork fan as I am, I still love it to pieces. Number 9, Gold Class Drum. A friend actually tipped me off to this record. It's a great post-punk sound, great post-punk production with a lot of driving bass. They're not pushing any boundaries here. They're just really honing in on that post-punk sound and almost perfecting it. Number 8, Kara Kara, Summer Megalith. Emo's having a good comeback this year. It has a lot of that Long Island flavor that you would feel from like either Brand New or Taking Back Sunday, but the instrumentation is a lot more diverse. There's a lot of post-rock influence here. Very clean sound, very fresh. Almost surprised I like it as much as I do. Number 7, Milo. Who Told You to Think? In a world of Gucci Gang trap, it's nice to see a rapper with a lot of vocabulary who isn't afraid to use it. The wordplay throughout this album is great. It never feels too heavy. The references you can pick up on just kind of sink you deeper and deeper into the album. Great production. It sounds really innovative. Number 6, Chelsea Wolfe, His Spun. I was really impressed with Abyss, her 2015 album. It had a lot of like doom metal influence, pretty out there in the open. This album's a little less readable, but the intricacies, it makes the album a little bit more discoverable. I was really surprised to find that I actually like this album a little bit more than Abyss. Number 5, Brutalism. This is the saving grace for rock music. This is what rock music needs to sound like. Very politically charged, very working class, great punk aesthetic to most of these tracks. Number 4, Ice Peak, Sweet Life. I've been kind of following Ice Peak since their 2014 EP, watching them grow. This album almost has a little bit more hip-hop influence than the hard witch house we're used to seeing from Ice Peak. Nastia's vocals are super experimental still, borderline something I haven't even heard yet. Really gets me excited to see where they go from here. Some of the tracks here remind me of like earlier Grimes, and that it has a little bit of that bedroom aesthetic, but fantastic album. Number 3, Perfume Genius, No Shape. Fantastic senior effort by Mike Hadrius. Really starting to see him kind of push the envelope stylistically. What Too Bright did as far as making him step outside of the balladry of his first 2 albums, this album is doing in full. So we're starting to hear some elements of Kate Bush, Prince, some trip hop elements. Really shows Mike's versatility in pop music. And I'm excited to see where he goes from here. Number 2, Blank Mass, Ben Power's 3rd solo album. It blends industrial, ambient, a little bit of house music, a little bit of post-rock. The diversity and listenability of this album is great, regardless of being kind of the murky electronic album it is. I can see myself listening to this all the time. Number 1, Mount Eerie, A Crow Looked at Me. The latest effort from Phil Evram, very autobiographical about the death of his wife. It's probably one of the saddest records I've heard of all time. It's hard not to choke up, even through the first track. It's super, super heavy, not for anybody who's looking for a casual listen. This thing will draw you in, make you appreciate all that you have in your life. And there you have it. That's my favorite music as far as 2017 goes. Look forward to what 2018 will bring. Hopefully some senior efforts from Ice Age, Vampire Weekend, you name it. Who knows what's in store. Please tell me what your favorite music was. I'm excited to listen to some albums I haven't listened to yet this year. Thanks for watching.